Hi, Gertrude. It's Carin Rockind. I am really honored to be talking to you, sending you this video. I just finished watching your TED Talk and I'm very moved. So my story, I grew up in a Midwest town here in the United States with parents who have been happily together since the 8th grade, grandparents who were married 68 years and they were Holocaust survivors. And so I grew up thinking and knowing what happiness was, right? That it was like my purpose in life would be to grow up, meet a guy, better he should be like 6 feet tall and a lawyer or a doctor to please my nice Jewish parents. And we would have a house and, maybe 2.4 kids and live happily for the rest of our lives. And I had all of it by the time I was 24. My husband at the time was 6'2" and dark hair and green eyes and chiseled cheeks. And he was a lawyer, and I had a rising corporate marketing career. We had a golden retriever. We made Thanksgiving dinners for our family. And life looked perfect, except one thing, that I was pretty severely depressed. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. Like my husband would say to me all the time, "What is wrong with you? We're happy. Look at our lives. We're happy." It's like we have football tickets and we have beer in the fridge and we have friends. And I thought something was wrong with me because I had everything I had ever wanted and somehow felt so empty, so unhappy inside. So we ended up getting divorced when I was 26, and I began my journey to say, well, if that didn't make me happy, what would? And pretty early on in my journey, I started volunteering with high school girls. And I don't know what high school was like for you, but for me and for these girls, here they were so excited about the future. They had so much hope and optimism about their life and where they were going. And at the same time, they felt so bad about themselves. Several of them had eating disorders. They felt like they weren't smart enough. They weren't as smart as their older brother. They weren't pretty enough. They were too fat. They were too thin. Something was wrong with them. One of the girls was cutting herself, self-harming. And in each of these girls, where they saw their flaws, all I saw was what was beautiful and perfect and wonderful about her. And I would be able to say, "Oh my goodness, Carla, you are so creative. Everybody comes to you for creativity. Don't you know? Like you are so," and I could just lift her up and see her. And she came alive, and these girls came alive, and I came alive. And it was like better than any bottle of wine I've ever had. And I thought, well, what is this? What is this juiced up, yummy feeling? And I came to recognize that it was purpose. This was purpose, contributing my gifts in my unique way. And so I went on this journey to figure out, like, how do I turn this into a career, right? It was like, I didn't know what kind of career that would be. Do I want to work for the youth group? Well, no, because then I do fundraising. People would say, "You want to be Oprah?" I'm like, that is so true. I want to be Oprah, right? I think we all want to be Oprah a little bit. But how do you become Oprah? It was too big. The only motivational speaker I'd ever seen was Tony Robbins. That was also too big. I'd never heard of coaching. This is like 15 years ago. And so honestly, I gave up. I'd even written a book and it got rejected by an agent in LA. And he said, "Carin, you're a great writer, but I can't publish this." And so I gave up. I went back to another lawyer, another BMW, ended up in another jewelry store with a big diamond on my finger. And I was about to do it all over again and marry another one. And I felt ill, and I went home and I broke up with him. And then I fell into such a deep depression because I knew that I had all these dreams and I wasn't fulfilling them. I had this idea of what purpose was and why I was here, and I was too afraid to go do it. And so step by step, I just decided I was going to start pursuing my dreams. I made a list of all of my regrets and one by one started doing them. I made a list of all the things I was jealous of. I made a list of how I wanted to do this career of empowering women to live their purpose. I was so afraid. At this point, I was now a vice president of marketing. I had a really healthy 6-figure job. I was really well known in my community. I owned a boat. I owned my own house. And then one day I was walking home from a bad blind date and laughing about it on the phone with my sister. She's in California and I was in Cleveland, Ohio at the time. And I'm like, "Oh my God." And he was so awful. And we're cracking up. We're laughing on the phone. And I go to put my key in my condominium door. And the next thing I know, I feel hot breath on my neck. And I turn around and I am nose to nose with a sad young man. I mean, he had huge eyes, black, huge eyes. And I said to him, are you going inside? I thought maybe he had a friend or an aunt who lived in the building. And then he looked into my eyes for an extra second and then pulled a gun. And I see this gun and it's pointed at my stomach and I fall to the floor and I'm screaming, please don't hurt me, please don't hurt me, please don't hurt me. And I look up and now the gun is pointed at my head and it's like I see these moments of my life. I see my grandparents at my bat mitzvah and I could see my 8th birthday party and I said, okay, God, it's been a good life. And at that moment, some other voice spoke to me. She was clear and she was calm and she said, oh no, you were put on this earth for purpose and women need you. And so at that moment, I made a promise to God. I said, if you live, I promise I will pursue that purpose no matter what. And just at that moment, the man took my purse and he ran. And so I survived that day in order to do this work in the world. And I am so blessed. Shortly thereafter, I decided I was going to go get my graduate degree in something that would help me to empower people. And I found the field of positive psychology, which is the scientific study of happiness and human flourishing. And I applied, and by the grace of the goddess, I got in. And I left my 6-figure vice president job and started life over again at 36 years old as a poor graduate student at the University of Pennsylvania. My dad said to me, that is the stupidest decision I have ever heard. And I will tell you that is the best decision I have ever made. Because my life today is getting to do this work, getting to empower women. In fact, so my work is, I speak at companies and conferences all over the world. I was just the keynote speaker at Capital One's women's conference, and then they hired me back for another women's conference just a month later. I also coach women. I coach women. One of my clients did the life where she married a pro football player in the United States and she was a beauty queen, but her real desire was to be on the Supreme Court one day in the United States, and she is now applying to law school. So I have the best job in the whole world. I take women on retreats all over the world. I just got back from taking women to Greece to feel into the goddess that they are. And I just launched, I'm so proud of this, I just launched the first ever global initiative to eradicate the women's depression epidemic, doing so by empowering women around the world to learn positive psychology tools. And what I did was we had 98 events. So it was called Women's Global Happiness Day, and I recruited women from all over the world, from Abuja, Nigeria, Jerusalem, Israel, Manila in the Philippines, Dallas, Texas, New Zealand. We had a group in New Zealand. So we had 98 events all around the world, 19 countries, 6 continents. And in each of those events, women met in small groups. It could have been 4 women. It could have been 28 women. And they met in these small groups to be real, to share their real pain, to share their real journeys, whether it's abuse or it's divorce or it's some other trauma. And then to learn to declare that they are worthy of happiness and worthy of joy. I wrote a women's happiness declaration, and the feedback that's been coming in, it's been extraordinary. My life has really been all about pain to purpose. This video is too short to even go into that my first love at 17 physically abused me, or to go into that 5 weeks before I finally went to graduate school. I took a friend of mine out on that boat and he drowned in front of me and I couldn't save him. There are so many instances of pain in my life, and my theory has always been that we rise not despite the pain, but because of it. And so I would be honored to work with you in your podcast or whatever you're putting together. I felt like a kindred spirit and a soul sister when I watched your TED Talk. So I'd love to talk to you further. And I hope you have a beautiful, 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 blessed day.